Hello, good people. Thank you very much for tuning once again today. I'm so happy, guys, and I welcome you back to our show today. Today, we're looking at Candace Owens, and we are looking at the side of the porn industry they don't want you to know. This is beautiful, guys, and I believe it is a wonderful interview, guys. So let us get straight away and see what Owens has for us. Thank you.
So I have spoken to people that have been in the porn industry before, and one thing that they pointed to me, which I just think that if people know this, I don't see how any person in good conscience could consume porn, is how high the suicide rates are for women in the industry.
Yeah.
And how drugged a lot of these women are to give themselves the confidence to be able to do what they are doing.
Yeah.
And how drugged they are after they do these scenes to be able to try to numb the pain of realizing what they have just done or what they have contributed to. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in 2018, there was like back to back to back suicides. I mean, it was every month. I think it was like 5 or 6 months in a row, somebody was dying. I have probably 15 friends that have died to either suicide or drug overdose. I just lost somebody that I was very close to last year. There's a very high death rate in the porn industry. And as far as drugs, I mean, I was one of those drug addicts. I had left the industry at one point at my 3.5-year mark because I was withdrawing from heroin.
Wow.
And that's when I ended up meeting a pimp, and he got me back into the industry for another 3 or
So talk about when you became a drug addict. So you're in the industry for 3 years. You left because of your addiction. When was the first time that you did heroin, and what gave you that impulse?
Okay, so, well, heroin, I mean, there were other drugs that led up to that. So I was on set. I was new in the entertainment or in the adult industry. And I'm 105 pounds, 5'1". I'm not overweight, but a director tells me, you're fat, you need to lose weight. And in high school, although I'd never been a pot smoker, I did try Coke a few times. And so I knew that it would make me not eat. So I asked one of the models, like, hey, I mean, apparently I'm fat and I need to lose weight. Like, is there, do you have access to any cocaine? And she was like, very suspicious as to why I was asking her. I'm like, no, I really do just want to buy cocaine. And so she ended up getting me some. And then from there, I just kind of got hooked and I started using it every day. And then I started dating a guy that introduced me to the Norcos, which are like Vicodin. They're for pain medication. From there, it went to Oxycontins. And then from Oxycontin, there was a girl that I was buying Oxycontins from that said, have you ever chased the dragon? And I'm like, what does that mean? And I thought she was talking about something in porn. And she's like, come over and I'll show you. So I hung out with her and she pulled out this piece of foil, put a piece of black tar with it was like a plastic, where you put your tampons in?
Yeah.
It was like a plastic from that.
Applicator.
An applicator, thank you. And she just started smoking heroin in front of me, and she's like, it's better than Oxy. So I tried it and used that for many months before I decided that, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I had called my grandma and told her, hey, if you don't come get me, I honestly think I'm going to commit suicide because I can't take this life anymore.
Wow. So you became a heroin abuser. Started with Oxycontin, cocaine, and then it leads to needing something stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, were you taking these drugs before scenes, after scenes, between scenes?
I lived on drugs because what happens when you become addicted is your body goes through intense withdrawals. So if you don't feed it what it needs, you're going to lose control of your bowels, your legs, everything's going to hurt. You're going to be in intense pain, far worse than the flu. You just feel awful. So I mean, I was on them every day. When I was down to my last 10 to 15 pills, I'm like, I need to call the dealer because if they don't have them, I need to figure it out. I mean, it was a vicious cycle of I'd get paid from porn, but then I'd have to go and chase the drug dealer. My net worth was said to be I don't know, $3.4 million by the time I left the business. I left that industry with my last paycheck, $1,500. That was it.
You're making money and then you're spending the money to get drugs.
Yeah.
Wow. And I only know one person personally that's ever been addicted to heroin, what I've known from way back, from middle school. And I remember seeing her as she got clean. And when she described to me in detail what the withdrawals were like to get off of heroin, she just said it was like dying.
Yeah.
That it's
Absolutely.
just, it's like dying. Every piece of your body is just, she was, in the hospital, and she said you can't even describe that sort of pain.
It's awful.
And yet you were willing to go through that pain. You call your grandmother and you say, come get me. And did she come get you?
She did. She drove up to Los Angeles, moved me in with her, into her home in San Diego. And I did get help from a doctor. I went to a doctor, got on what was called Suboxone to kind of help alleviate the withdrawal a little bit, but it was still pretty bad.
Okay. Why didn't you call your mother or your father?
You know what? I, at that time, had a very, very hindered relationship with my mom. She and I have a great relationship now, but she was the cause of a lot of the voids that I had in life,
Okay, so your grandmother comes to the rescue. And how long did you spend with her?
I was with her for maybe 3 to 5 months before I met a guy that I started dating. He was in a motorcycle gang. I had moved in with him. He got stabbed to death in front of me. And then from there, I had nowhere to live. And the pimp, which was his friend, comes and kind of is like, oh, well, I'll put you in a hotel for a few days. And he's giving me meth. And, because at this point I started using crystal meth. And
did you get clean while you were with your grandmother?
I
or was
did.
It sort of.
Yeah, but it was a very short stint of being clean. Like it didn't last long, obviously.
So you fell right back in. You watch your ex-boyfriend get stabbed to death. His friend, he's the pimp, says, hey, I'll take care of you. You need somewhere place to stay. And now he's supplying you with drugs, methamphetamine.
Yes.
Totally different drug from heroin.
Totally different, yeah. This one gets you wired. So I start hearing voices. So he ends up taking me to a mental institution. I get clean there for a few days, and then he brings me to his apartment. He was actually a believer, a backslidden believer. So he introduces me to the Bible and takes me and gets me baptized.
This is the same person that gave you the meth, and he is a pimp.
Yes.
But he's also a believer. And after you go into a mental institution, he says, actually, by the way, I forgot to mention that aside from being a pimp and aside from supplying you with drugs, I also am a believer.
Yeah, because he was a meth addict at one point and found God, and that's how God healed him. But then he ended up going into this line of work, if you want to call it that.
I'm not sure how God
Yeah.
healed him, but he's also supplying
you're right.
methamphetamine. He sounds like a conflicted Christian.
Very much so.
Which
Very
is,
much so.
That's not to make fun of him. It's just to point to the fact
No, it's
that,
true.
He clearly was still
It's true.
struggling himself. But
So after I get
he tells you about Christ.
Yeah. So after I get clean, and I kind of have like just almost like a new attitude, because I'm reading the Bible every day, but I don't really understand it. He starts to explain to me that, Jesus loves prostitutes because of Mary Magdalene, and very twisting the scriptures. And then from there, he's like, I just think it's time. I think that it's time for you to get back into the porn industry. And, and I'm just like I knew that he was a pimp, but because men were my weakness, and I had grown attracted to him at that point. And I thought like, oh no, like he even gave me a ring, proposed to me, all of this. So I'm thinking like, I thought we were in love. Like I was very naive. Like, why would you put me back into, I don't know. I let him take advantage of me. I didn't know. I was vulnerable at that time in my life.
And how old were you at this time?
21.
So young.
Yeah.
So young.
Yep.
All of this has happened. You've seen a lot of life up until this point.
Absolutely.
And now you think you're in love, and he says, Jesus loved prostitutes. And I think it's time for you to go back to the porn industry.
Exactly.
And
I go back.
You went back.
I told him, I said, me thinking that we're in love, like, hey, if I go back to the industry, we're not going to last. And he's like, oh yeah, we're going to be together forever. So 3 years later, I had an encounter. I actually had an encounter with God, and I just felt like, you know what, I need to leave this guy. And so he'd been taking all my money for 3 years, but I prepared myself. I stashed money from an overnight escorting gig that I did I think it was in Miami. And he found out about the money that I stashed, took it. I was crazy, called 911, threatened to turn him in, and he gave me the money, and I ended up getting away from him. And that time, it was actually with the help of my mom.
Really? So did you call her in
I did.
a desperate moment?
In a desperate moment, yeah.
And
she
what
was
did
there
what
for
did you
me.
say to her?
I told her, Mom, I need to get away from this guy. I said, he's no good for me. I'm sure you know that. And I really need your help.
Wow. And what did she do?
She showed up. She lived about 15 minutes away and she was there for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were able to get that money back from him?
Yes.
Okay.
So that I could get my own apartment and a car at that point. And
it must have been a lot of money.
yeah.
He was taking all of it.
Well, I mean, he took all my money for 3 years. Yeah. So I think I want to say I stashed around $10,000. I got a little $5,000 car from Craigslist and was able to get an apartment. Then I had no money and I was going to go back to what I knew. So I went and filmed my last porn scene before I had yet another God encounter.
Oh, that was very sad story. I didn't know that there is a hidden side of this porn industry, and she was explaining that very well, and Candace was exploring the details well. Guys, thank you for watching, and please press that subscription button so that next time you will be able to get such wonderful informative videos. See you again next time. Bye bye.